Most of the participants in the men's and women's Iron Survivor matches at NXT Deadline were announced on Tuesday. There was a show-long storyline where Shawn Michaels invited 4 WWE Hall of Famers who never came out before the live crowd to sit with him in a boardroom backstage to go through the NXT roster and decide who deserved to participate in both Iron Survivor matches on December 10th. It's coming up next Saturday. This is their new scramble match concept with the penalty box to replace War Games. The winner of the men's match will earn a shot at the NXT Championship, and the winner of the women's match will earn the right to challenge Mandy Rose for her NXT Women's Championship, both at a later date to be determined. So we had Road Dogg, X-Pac, Alundra Blayze, and Molly Holly. They all seemed reasonably familiar with the product, either that or they were prepped very well. Road Dogg works for WWE, as does Molly, so I would expect them both to know a lot of the faces at the Performance Center. Alundra Blayze probably not, although they did bring her in for a segment a few months ago, and I don't know how much Waltman keeps up with it. But I thought for the most part, the banter between them came off genuine. They had cutaways back to the boardroom several times throughout the show. And when it was over, the names they settled on for the men's match were Carmelo Hayes, which should be a no-brainer. You'd have to have no brain not to pick him. J.D. McDonough, Grayson Waller, and Joe Gacy, with a triple threat wildcard match on TV this Tuesday to determine the 5th member between Von Wagner, Axiom, and Andre Chase. On the women's side, we have Zoe Stark, Cora Jade, Roxanne Perez, and Kiana James. The triple threat wildcard match this Tuesday for the 5th spot will be between Wendy Chu, Fallon Henley, and Indy Hartwell. They had 2 fucking hours to pick a 5th person and they couldn't decide on one. I think Shawn Michaels needs to find some better people to bring in next time. The first thing that jumps out at me when I look at the field on the men's and the women's side is that they are dominated by heels. There is not a single babyface on the men's side. And the only babyface on the women's side is Roxanne Perez. Von Wagner would seem like a shoo-in on the men's side were it not for the fact that they have no babyfaces. So I think either Axiom or Andre Chase is going to squeak in, probably after Odyssey Jones costs Wagner the win, since it looks like the two of them are headed for a match. So I just think it's more likely Wagner and Odyssey have a singles match at Deadline than Wagner being involved in this. The women's wildcard match, it's harder to predict, but I think Wendy Chu gets in since Cora Jade is already in the match. Again, this concept is an experiment. If it works, we'll see more of it, and they'll probably use it on the main roster at some point. If it fails, well, at least they tried something new, which is what they can use NXT for. It was also weird to hear them talking about Tony D'Angelo and how, well, we can't really vote for him because he's been hurt and he may not be ready, and sometimes you have to protect the talent from themselves. And then later on in the same show, Tony D'Angelo says that he's been cleared and he's going to be back in the ring this Tuesday in a match. So that didn't make much sense. Roxanne pinned Indy Hartwell clean in Indy's best match in a long time. That's the best Indy Hartwell match I've seen in forever. Dijak had his first match since returning to NXT with a win over Dante Chen. He beat him easily with his Feast Your Eyes finish. Then they gave him a microphone after the match was over, and he called that an example of hard justice. Now he's naming old TNA pay-per-views. First they copy their King of the Mountain match, now they're stealing their pay-per-view names. If we see a barbed wire Christmas tree on TV at some point this month, I'm going to start asking questions. Are we sure that Abyss is not working behind the scenes now for Shawn Michaels? Because I know he works for them. Did they send him down from the main roster to work NXT? Dijak said that he's not reinventing himself. He's here to eviscerate a soft society. I wasn't a fan of the material they gave him. I thought he delivered it fine. I mean, he did what he could with it. Later in the show, he was in the parking lot leaving when he was confronted by Tony D'Angelo. I thought maybe they were going to reveal that they were working together after he attacked Wes Lee last week. It may end up that way. Dijak wasn't very friendly towards him, but D'Angelo brought up that he's returning to the ring next week and said that his goal is to see Wes Lee's reign as North American champion come to an end. And he asked Dijak if they have an understanding. And he responded with something like that, and then he walked away. My favorite thing on the show, though, was the diner segment with Bron. I love diners anyway. I was just at a diner last night, in fact. I was having some sliders and french fries at 2:30 in the morning. I love diners. They had a diner segment with Bron Breakker and Apollo Crews. Crews was sitting at a booth, about to enjoy his scrambled eggs and his toast. He was writing in his journal. When Bron showed up and sat across from him, he knows this is the diner that Apollo usually eats at. And they had a very natural, realistic-sounding conversation, as realistic and natural-sounding as you would expect in WWE. Bron ordered some coffee and talked about how Apollo coming back to NXT inspired him to work harder in the gym. Crews said that he's been doing the same. They're going to be wrestling each other at Deadline next weekend. Crews said that when Bron wrestled Von Wagner, for the first time, he didn't have the size advantage, but he still had his speed. But against him, he's not going to have either one of those things. There was no yelling. A fight didn't break out in the middle of the diner, although that would have been fucking great. I would love to see a diner fight. It was a different kind of segment than we're used to seeing. And like the segment last week with Bron fishing on the lake, right? They're doing a good job of humanizing him, because as good as he is this early in his career, he comes off very one-dimensional. And I think they know that, which is why they've been taking great pains to do these segments with him. And I think it's paying off. I think it's been very effective. They aired a vignette for a newcomer to NXT, who is a familiar face to NXT UK fans, however many of those are left. We have Aoife Valkyrie. She has not wrestled since last August. That's August of last year, not this year. She suffered a knee injury in a win over Ginny. Got hurt, hasn't been seen since. Now she's coming to NXT and she has a new name. No longer is she Aoife Valkyrie. Now she is Lyra Valkyria. She talked about watching the Birds as a child, leaving... Fuck the Birds, by the way. Leaving Ireland for a new place. And now she's leaving her homeland and she's shedding her feathers as new feathers emerge stronger. Who we once knew has shapeshifted to a new form. So now we have shapeshifting here in the new NXT. She had a win streak going for over a year in NXT UK until she lost to Meiko Satomura. They've been adding talent to the women's division recently from the UK brand. We had Alba Fire, right? Then Isla Dawn showed up a few weeks ago to feud with Alba Fire. And now we have Lyra Valkyria. You line them up, and they all fall to Mandy Rose. Toxic Attraction beat Caden Carter, Katana Chance, and Nikita I almost said Nikita Koloff. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm about to talk about Jim Crockett Promotions for the Tales from the Territories review, so I have Nikita Koloff on my mind. just the idea that Mandy Rose would have beaten Nikita Koloff. Maybe one day and be the booker. If we do like an intergender, I don't know what I'm saying. This is what happens when you're up at 2:30 in the morning at a fucking diner and you go to bed at 4. I'm a little off my game here. But no, Toxic Attraction beat Caden Carter, Katana Chance, and Nikita Lyons. Oh, they attacked Nikita's knee earlier in the show, but she was cleared to work the main event, and so they came out, they did the match in the main event after all. And she lost to a high-low from Gigi Dolan and JCJ. Not a very good high-low, but that's what it was. They're building Nikita up for a championship match with Mandy Rose, but the woman who ought to be taking the title from Mandy Rose is Roxanne Perez. Of the names in that Iron Survivor match, she's the one. She's my pick. She's my prediction, but she's the one that I would pick to go all the way and dethrone Mandy. And not because I think Roxanne Perez should have a long, extended run as the NXT Women's Champion, but I think she's the perfect babyface to topple Mandy Rose, to take the championship from Mandy before ultimately the championship goes to Tiffany Stratton. She's the one who I think... You're not going to have Tiffany Stratton as the heel beat Mandy Rose. Roxanne Perez, perfect person to take the title from Mandy, but then in the end, at some point, Maybe WrestleMania weekend. I don't know. But Tiffany Stratton is going to be your new NXT Women's Champion before long. Mark my words.